Friends and family, hello, my name is Skylent, and I am here to try to share some cool games. Often I check out new games, upcoming games, we try to do pre-impressions, whatever that even means. We do reviews, and I really try to get these listicles out there to really kind of take lists seriously, comparing and contrasting games, and where you as a consumer should put your money and your time. But today, we have a video where it seems you have chosen to put your time and money into other games. Whether that was a good choice or not, I don't know, we could debate about it, but this is going to be my list for games that they were hyped. You guys liked them for a moment, and not anymore. Totally not anymore. In fact, some of these games are actually they're slated to be shut down. So bit of a tragedy, maybe. But you know, I had fun with these games, and some of you did too. So let's talk about what went wrong, or you know, what's going on. Top 10 great free-to-play games that you kind of forgot about. Alright guys, so starting off the list is really the game that inspired this entire list, and it's a game called Block and Load. And I think I put it on some lists where it's like, you know, games you're not playing anymore or underrated games. Block and Load is totally that, and that's for a couple of reasons. But firstly, the all-time peak of Block and Load was 8,594. As we go through the list, that peak number will get higher, and then percentage-wise, well, the last 24-hour peak will get smaller. So 120 players in the last 24 hours as of making this video. I believe Block and Load, so a big departure. In the end though, Block and Load was such a cool game. It was kind of like Minecraft meets Overwatch, and really much before Overwatch was announced and picked up and really promoted. So Block and Load is pretty cool. You get like a couple minutes to build up your base, literally, kind of like Minecraftian voxel style. And then the walls come down and the two teams siege each other's bases. You know, there's actual destruction, all the characters have different blocks and abilities they can use, and yeah, the optimization was pretty poor, and the promotion was really poor. Jagex is really good at shutting down games. They're really good at kind of destroying games, and they're just kind of good at running old school RuneScape, and that's because they let the community mostly dictate where that one goes. So Block and Load, I think you had the wrong publisher, but god dang did you have the right heart. Such a beautiful game, I loved it. And any chance I get, I'll shout it out. So, kind of making a whole video based on that. And I'm sure a lot of these other games, you feel the same way, those who played those games. Alright, next up on the list, we have Elder Scrolls Legends, which actually, as of recording this right now, I just found out that this game is getting canceled. So no more development on this title. But this is a game that had an all-time peak of 8,781 players, at least on Steam. Elder Scrolls Legends was going to be this, you know, cross-platform, you know, Hearthstone kind of competitor game. For this style of game, 8,000 or around 9,000 is actually really good because this is a 1v1 style game. Totally fine. In fact, 8,000 players for a fighting game is like, yo, that's a popular fighting game. But you know, for a card game cross-platform, I guess it just wasn't really enough. I really don't like CCG anymore. I won't play them if there's card packs and gambling mechanics. I'm not going to do that anymore. Gacha games, no, done. But you know, some people really enjoyed this game. The 24-hour peak was 776. So the all-time peak, that was a nice start, but the last 24-hour peak at under 1,000, that's when we're starting to get into some pretty bad territory there. Still cross-platform, I guess, but in the end, the card mechanics, I guess nothing too unique, but it wasn't unpolished. There were some cool ideas, and a lot of you guys in the comments really love to promote Elder Scrolls Legends, more so than more unique games like Duelist or Gwent or something else, or even Magic the Gathering. I don't know, a lot of people were just really excited for it. I think a lot of people are just fanatics for Elder Scrolls, but in the end, it wasn't a bad game for sure. I guess just to compete with Titans, you have to be at least a god yourself. And Elder Scrolls Legends just wasn't the oomph. it just wasn't the anime waifu titties that Shadowverse is, I guess. Next up, we have a Minecraftian inspired game, Creativerse. The all-time peak was 10,880, which is pretty cool. But the last 24-hour peak was 634. Yeah. That's not horrible, actually, and for a game like this, even if there was no players, you could totally jump in and co-op through it, which I'm sure you guys have done with adventure maps and just the vanilla Minecraft experience, yeah, in Minecraft. But yeah, Creativerse, I think, is this weird, I don't know. It's just this game that you jump in and you think, is it going to be focused totally on the creation aspect? Are we going to have really ridiculous map building tools, things like that, which we get in games like Playcraft or Roblox? Not quite. And is it going to be like hardcore survival? Like, is it going to have extra enhanced survival mechanics? Not quite as well. It really just kind of felt more in line with the spirit of vanilla Minecraft, which is a cool concept. I liked Cardboard Life for that and many others. But it just wasn't as explosive as it needed to, and it needed more updates. As a games as a service, that would have been really fantastic. I think in the end, it's still a really cool game, and you can still have fun with it, actually. Genuinely, I think it's very interesting, and 634 players, really not great. It's definitely fallen from grace. I'm honestly surprised it did get so popular, because a lot of these games die really on arrival. Skyforge, I think, was my favorite, which was more like action RPG mixed with Minecraft. Really cool stuff. Creativerse, yeah, I don't know. If you want a vanilla Minecraft experience, once again, and just, with little twists and turns on some rules, while being free to play, a lot of these games are like $20, $30, freaking, they're like $50 for Boundless? Yeah, Creativerse is still definitely worth checking out. Moving on, Darwin Project, with an all-time peak of 12,513, but sadly with a 24-hour last peak of 141. That's not that great, and normally for Battle Royale that would be completely abysmal, but Darwin Project is not a large scope Battle Royale. It is more kept, more small, and the mechanics overall, I think, really allow for the community to thrive by it being kind of small. So the gimmick is like, yeah, it's going to be a Battle Royale. It's like, really, really small numbers of players, not too big, smaller map overall, but the gimmick is one player is not actually like a player. They are the spectator person that can influence the game, and there's generally like lots of jokes and silliness that can arise from this. I don't know, I kind of like that aspect. I think a lot of people did too. It was hype, it was a gorgeous game. Third-person shooter had a little bit of awkwardness going on with its controls and latency, but I think it's kind of hit its stride now. A little late though, because once the hype dies, well, you know what happens. But Darwin Project is still a game that you can have fun with, absolutely, especially if you want something that has more of the very weird and very unbalanced mechanics of stuff like Battle Royale, the book and movie, as well as Hunger Games. But yeah, it was a game that was always sillier in a genre that, even though people didn't take it too seriously at first, it kind of is a more sporty genre and more competitive genre, just really, really chaotic. Darwin Project added way more chaos and color to the, this comic book looking Battle Royale, but at the same time, it actually is maybe too silly for most people who want a Fortnite esport it up. Dirty Bomb. I loved this game. In fact, even after I was playing Gigantic and Overwatch and all these other hero shooters were coming out, Paladins, I always was hungry to come back to Dirty Bomb, even though I thought I would just leave it in the dust. Dirty Bomb has some really freaking cool mechanics. I loved the two-phase sort of objective system, where at one phase you might blow up a gate, and the next phase you have to like push a vehicle through to a section, and then you have to take that vehicle's there's like bombs in the tank or whatever. You got to put the bombs into the base. So there's like multiple objectives. The map changes radically through the actual play session. The one thing that I think really held it back was its monetization scheme. At first, being published by Nexon was kind of not great. They also did a pretty poor job of producing and publishing the game. As well, the mercenary, which is what the characters in this game were called, system, a lot of the characters had the same guns. A lot of characters played very similarly. And then there were certain characters that were just obviously like, oh, that character, okay, Phantom, he plays one very specific way. You have like this guy that can revive himself. A certain sniper was actually more unique. I like to play Proxy. Proxy was pretty cool. But then again, a lot of characters played the same, moved the same, and kind of looked the same in comparison to modern hero shooters like Overwatch. And even historically Team Fortress 2. It was supposed to be a competitive game. They didn't really esport it up. A 24-hour peak, guys, is 394. And the game is no longer being published by Nexon. It's got its tight-knit little community, but it is a team-based game, so kind of like Block and Load, it's going to be super hard to find people to play with, and there's no sport potential with this game anymore, tragically, which is really, it was its focus previously. So Dirty Bomb was a really cool hero shooter that was very solid in terms of like a fast-paced shooter. I like the wall jumping mechanic. it could have been more. It could have been more. It needed to be a little bit more brave. But for somewhere like a half between of like boots on the ground, sort of Call of Duty style game and a hero shooter, there's no other game like this out there. So it kind of sucks that it's not more popular. And now we're going to talk about Quake Champions. And this is really weird. I'm going to say some negative things, but this is a top 10 list of games that I really think are great. I love Quake Champions. I love the characters that they've selected and put in. I would like actually fantasize of like what characters they could add in. I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if Doomslayer was in there? Oh my God, they put in Doomslayer. So they weren't afraid to go a little ham, a little bit ridiculous, and add some chaos to it all. An all-time peak of 17,332 had a lot of people, pretty excited for this game, especially because it was going free to play, where you were able to jump into the game, earn the characters over time, or you could just buy the box, similar to the way Smite does things. Really appreciate that. But with a 24-hour peak, we get a different story of 922. This game as a consistent esport title is a failure. It was not good enough. Maybe some older nostalgic players for the arena shooter genre might say that, arena shooters, they're not popular because players just aren't good enough anymore. But really, everyone that I've played and reviewed, even though I get hate on it, I'm going to say it again. No, Quake Champions, which was supposed to be the champion of that genre, all these games, they're not good enough. Quake Champions had optimization issues. You cannot have optimization issues in a competitive game. It had horrible balance issues, and its esports scene wasn't really promoted despite the fact that there's QuakeCon. In fact, I moved to Dallas with full intentions to constantly spam applications to work on Quake Champions. I was so enthralled and excited, but I don't think they're really going to be hiring too many new people. I doubt we're going to get many new updates. I doubt they're going to be pushing that esports scene much harder. And it's really a full tragedy. This game just doesn't have the player base to support the sport idea and concept, and the game just doesn't have the foundation it needs to, despite the fact that it's freaking Quake. How dare it? How dare they launch a game half-baked like this? But in the end, as a fun, silly game, and as a game to kind of mess around with and learn arena shooter mechanics, and it being free, it's amazing. So many of these niche games aren't free. So Quake Champions is still a really cool game. Scalebearer, that's my boy. I love that guy. And yeah, Doomslayer and a few others. Characters are really, really fun. So I do play all these different, hero shooters and different shooters, period. Quake Champions, still on my radar, especially because it's small team battles and 1v1. So you don't need huge population. But in terms of being a competitive arena shooter, you do. So in that sense, it completely failed. But that doesn't mean it's actually not a good game. Just because it sucks doesn't mean it's not great, or something like that. I don't know. Depends on your mentality. Hopefully you guys can find the right perspective and have a good time. Okay, but on that sour note, actually, I've got one that's kind of a good story in a way. So we got Dungeon Defenders 2, which is a game that I try to defend often online. A lot of people don't like some aspects of this game because they're purist to the original Dungeon Defenders, which actually is still a super duper freaking fun game that you can play. I like it. I think it's charming. There is some strange balance issues with that game, but in the end, once you actually get running with the loot and everything, it's one of the best looter shooter tower defense games out there. It's really like the only one. Anyways, Dungeon Defenders 2 graphics are increased, the action is increased overall, but also the grind is increased. But in some ways, that's kind of good if you like stuff like Warframe and general looters. Like, there's stuff to do in this game. I played the Summoner class, good times. All-time peak of 18,744, good stuff there. Which is that's what I think that's better than what it should have done, actually. And right here we have a 24-hour peak of 618, which yeah, that kind of sucks. And a lot of people have forgotten about this game, and some people don't know how unique this title is. But it's a co-op game. You could just jump in with one friend, or it's a free-to-play game. It's online. 618 is okay. Just jump in with a couple people, do some maps. You can still have a great time. And the original Dungeon Defenders was also really, really niche, and I had an amazing time. And I had a really hardcore community. So this game, despite it kind of being on, it's almost like a negative list, almost like it's a tragic list. This is actually like for the style of game that it is. It's okay. This is pretty good. And the game itself is great, but I also do want to suggest the buy to play Dungeon Defenders, and also look forward to the new Dungeon Defenders coming out here pretty soon. Now we're getting into the big three. These games were global phenomenons, talking about MapleStory 2. At 42,278 all-time peak players on Steam. Oh boy, that's a big game, and that makes sense because they have some big shoes to fill with the original MapleStory and the original trailers, all the promotions for this game, which there were some. It was quite the production. really pushed this game into the limelight. The spotlights were on it, and then we got into it. And we're like, oh man, I'm so ready for this cutesy grinder minigame filled, MMO. No, it wasn't really an MMO. You could call it an MMO light. I even put it in like my top 5 MMO lights. Minigames, barely. It's sort of cutesy. There is some cool community customization and things that you can do. Players can actually create items and put them in the game. I guess that's neat. Really, and as an ARPG grinder story game, it's really hard to get into it because like the tutorial's like hours and hours and hours and hours long. Basically, the overall flow and the sort of amalgamation of parts that they've added it's like all these niche aspects they threw together. And I think as a whole package, if you are a very particular type of player that happens to like all these things, then it's a great game. But otherwise, it's just not the game for you at all. And I think in a way they were just half ambitious. The original concept, wild, but the execution of which, as a service, they needed to do way more. And I feel like a lot of the advertising was a bit misleading. So tragedy has struck, but 821 24-hour peak, you can still have a good time. And as a father, I definitely plan to go and co-op with this with my son sometime, and hopefully you guys can jump in with a friend and do the same. Okay, number 2, that's gonna sting. It's Battlerite. 44,850 for an all-time peak. And they actually got that because they hired a bunch of these big streamers from like League of Legends and stuff like that and threw them in. And a lot of people were having so much fun. There was so much positivity for this game, but now it's got a 24-hour peak, drastically smaller, 943 players. What? This is a 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3 style action combat, almost like fighting game. So really, actually, 943 is kind of good. So that's neat. But the hopes and dreams of Battlerite was to be basically the arena shooter, the Quake of MOBAs. That's really how it was promoted, and that's how a lot of people saw it. And it was hyper competitive. It just had a kind of slower pace. The maps were all kind of the same, and a lot of the characters had very similar abilities despite looking pretty different. So I thought the game had some character, it just needed a lot more quantity. It had the quality though, but this is a game that needed to be published like an esport game. And its development cycle was so elongated. It took so long, and they had this one opportunity, this burst, this huge peak of players, and then it just slowly crawled down from there. And they never really took that momentum and used it. So that's really tragic. But as a vertical slice game and as a game that you can kind of admit is more for fun now, despite it being very competitive, and is also a game that doesn't have the sticking power of something like League or etc. It's still a really cool game, but, trying to be a competitive game and then not promoting an esport scene, well, eventually this game will probably shut down, but it's still a really great game. And I'm sorry that we all have forgotten it, but there's also reasons for that. That's true, but still, guys, if you remember it now and it looks fun, jump in with a friend or two, and just battle it up. It's just a MOBA. It's a MOBA in the purest minimalistic sense, but with the most ridiculous combat mechanics. Do it up. All right, friends, our number 1 game, great games, okay, that you already forgot, by far the most popular and then have lost the most amount of players and respect, was a game called Royale. 104,000 players, 557 for an all-time peak. Coming in just as really at the peak of the Battle Royale genre. We had so many titles coming out, and Realm Royale was coming in right behind Fortnite, and it just was so explosive. It was such a fun, cool, magical style, Battle Royale that even today, I think is probably the best. We have Spellbreak and a bunch of others on the horizon. I actually did a Fantasy BR upcoming list, and there's probably more to be announced. MMOs are adding battlegrounds that happen to be Battle Royales. But Realm Royale is still so cool with its mix of guns and its fast-paced gameplay with the mounting system, and a lot of the loot mechanics made the game extremely balanced. I really appreciated it, and I bet the game is probably in a good state now. But basically what happened was it launched, it was different, it was good, and it was really fast-paced in a genre that at the moment, it was a bit slow. And people weren't that good at Fortnite. We didn't have Apex there, and we had PUBG, and that was extremely slow. So Realm Royale with all of these balanced things that made it just very arcade, in your face, casting spells, the chicken. It was just so ridiculous and fun, but at the same time, it totally had a legitimate competitive potential with the balancing of the different classes, the different sort of builds, and again, the fairness of the, I guess, the RNG, the poker-like, thing that we really love Battle Royales for, the randomness. It was a little bit easier for a good player to really have a more consistent time in the game, and then they changed it, they updated the game, and they basically just broke their own game. Hi-Rez, really good at doing that. And then Hi-Rez is also really good at dropping support for their games. And they're more of a quantity over quality style company, which you can even tell by the fact that they actually created multiple different game studios with different names. So literally, instead of just having one company that focuses on like just a few games and really supports them, yeah, they're really good at spam. And the Realm Royale is still a really fun, silly game, but for a Battle Royale, which is like tons of players, this one is a big team battle Realm Royale. It has 1,833 for a 24-hour peak. That is just really like 18 lobbies at most. 18 lobbies, 18 games at any one time for this game that should be one of the most popular games on the planet right now. And it, at one time, it had that potential. It was right there. It was at the cusp of greatness, and it's been completely squandered. But at the moment, I think that it has been updated. I think that people are talking about, it's balanced, you should jump back in. And it's really hard to convince people like me to do that. But of course I will, and I will have fun. But Battle Royales are competitive games. But even still, Realm Royale is just the most bonkers game out there. And I think it's something that more people really should play. I think people should jump into it. And I need to follow my own gospel, and I need to play it a little bit more. Despite it not being that popular, it's still a game that I think people have a lot of fun watching. People do have a lot of fun when they do actually play it. So maybe when we start up our game club thing, we can jump in, and play it for a weekend or for a week, and we can have a time, because there's definitely a time to be had in Realm Royale. Especially if you missed that original launch, if this is a game that you literally forgot existed, like as the titles of this video suggests, you need to try it. It's something. It's an experience. You'll make some memories. Yeah, guys, that's it for my 10. It was based on Steam stats. Great free games that you already forgot. Kind of a tragic little video, but I still try to keep the hype alive and ask that you do the same. And hopefully you have fun with these games and had fun with the video. But if you play these games currently, please let us know the current state, your current thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Let us know. Much love, though, friends and family. I really like playing all these games, and having played them, I don't regret the memories that I've made and the friends that I made along the way as well. Hopefully you guys join us whenever we stream these games and play these games together. Maybe we'll pick some of these games, these more hidden gem, little known games. We'll repopulate them, a little game club thing. I think that'd be really cool. You guys seem to respond very well to that idea. But all I can ask is you keep the hype alive. My name is Skylent, and I'll see you again next time.